What is up, boys? It is PDS. Today I'll be coming at you with a hand trap guide. This video will be featuring Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs. As you guys know, this card is goated. It's very powerful. It stops a lot of decks from accessing cards in their deck. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so up first we have Tri-Brigade / Tri-Brigade Zoodiac, the Lyrilusc version I'll get into a little bit later. But the best card to ash against this deck is definitely the Fractal. So by ashing the Fractal, you stop them from accessing a lot of their engine. It stops them from getting the kit and the Nerval to the graveyard. So Fractal by itself gets 3 names into the graveyard. By ashing this, you force them to have cards like Called by the Grave or a Crossout Designator or a Keras to continue playing the game. So overall, ash against this deck, I'd give it a 4 out of 5. It's pretty damn good, honestly. It can even sometimes just end their whole turn. So, obviously there's going to be games where they have those extenders, but you ash the correct card. So, what else could you do in that situation? So, yeah, let's move on to the next one, guys. Alright, so up next we have the deck everyone's trying to beat, Drytron. So I'm going to just start off by saying, even if you open Ash Blossom and even if you ash the correct cards, there is scenarios where they actually can just play through it anyways. So Drytron is definitely one of those decks, and a lot of combo decks are like this, where they play a lot of cards that allow them to keep playing even though they get interrupted. So just keep that in mind. Ash is not going to solve all of your problems, but the list on the screen currently is going to just give you a lot of scenarios and when you should use your Ash Blossom at the best time. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this list, and thank you to everybody who sent it to me. I went ahead and just added it to the video, so thank you guys so much. And that's just something you got to keep in mind. Combo decks sometimes are just really unfair, even if you open it interruption. There are a lot of combo decks that actually do fumble to an Ash Blossom, but Drytron definitely is one of them that can just play through it. So just keep that in mind, guys. Next up, we have Virtual World. So actually, a lot of hand traps you'll find are pretty damn worthless against this deck. Like the exceptions being, like Nibiru and Gamma, they're pretty damn good. Cards like Duel, Skullmeister, a lot of these more niche ones, they're not that impactful. Oh, Infinite Impermanence is another one where it's not really that good against this deck. They can still actually combo off pretty hard. Ash is one of the decent ones against this deck. You can either hit the Lulu or the Kowloon. You usually want to wait for the Lulu, because Kowloon, it does give them a card face up on the field, but Lulu will let them get any card that they're missing as part of their combo. So, if they need to search for Chuche, they can get to the Chuche. If they need another name, they can get to the name. The thing is, though, sometimes they don't draw Lulu, and sometimes hitting Kowloon is correct. And then other times they don't draw Kowloon, but they draw Lulu, vice versa. That's just something that's going to come down to variance, but normally I would recommend you guys to wait for the Lulu if possible. But I know some of you guys just get trigger happy, you got to hit that Kowloon, but just keep that in mind that they can go into it with a Lulu, so try to play as safe as possible, guys. Alright, up next we have Prank Kids. So the best thing to hit in Prank Kids is definitely going to be, when they normal summon a Prank Kid, any of them, Dropsies, Lampsies, whatever, Fansies, and then they link off into the Meow Meow Moo, you're going to want to go ahead and just ash the effect to special summon from the deck. That will definitely just end their turn. They're going to need some extender, like a, some sort of fusion spell. Call by the Grave is not an extender, but, they need something to stop that Ash Blossom, or just try to, play further into their turn. So definitely a really good hit against Prank Kids for sure. Sometimes there's going to be situations where they already have a fusion spell and they just start off the turn with a polymerization, and that's where it gets a little bit complicated. You're going to want to try to stop them from getting to their fusion spell, which is that that Pandemonium, whatever effect can get them to the Pandemonium, which would include Fansy's effect to mill or the Cockle-Doodle-Doo. You're going to want to try to stop that as well. But it's not really as impactful as hitting the, the Link 1 summon whenever you ash them when they summon Meow Meow Mew. That's definitely the most impactful way to stop this deck. All right, up next we have Eldlich. The best things to hit against this deck, definitely going to be either the Sanguine or some sort of draw card like the Extravagance. Sometimes you even want to hit the the other spell card, the other Eldlich of Black Awakening. Sanguine hit is really nice because usually it lets you push in more damage on your turn when you are swinging into their face. You just Ash the Sanguine, they don't get the Golden Lord out. They gotta wait, another 2 turns before they get a chance to even get out the Golden Lord. So it really slows them down quite a bit, which is already, a lot against the trap deck that's already pretty slow. So Ash on the Sanguine, pretty damn nice. But honestly, there's not really too much to Ash in this deck besides, sometimes they play Extravagance. So it's basically just those 2 cards. Sometimes it's correct to hit the Extravagance, obviously, because they're going to be drawing 2. So you definitely don't want that. You don't want them to get more trap cards. But yeah, let's move on to the next one, guys. Alright, up next we have Phantom Knights. This is another deck where it's one of those combo decks where they just extend like crazy. They can even still put up a Rongo past your Ash Blossom, but in my opinion, the best card to hit against this deck is definitely going to be Rusty Bardiche. Rusty Bardiche lets them send a Phantom Knight monster to the graveyard and then set a Phantom Knight spell directly from their deck, which is insane. They get a Fog Blade or they get the Shade Brigadine, which allows them to make a rank 4, or just make some sort of Link monster play with Link Spider, some cards like that. So when you hit the Bardiche, that's basically the choke point of the deck. So you can't really hit Cherry Beanie, right, because he sends his cost. If you stop the graph, they have a chance of still opening a dark extender to go into the Bardiche anyways, and then you just want to stop the Bardiche to begin with, right? So you're going to want to hit the Bardiche. You might be tempted to hit something like a Tour Guide or, all these different Phantom Knight variants. Basically, any deck that made Cherubini, they're trying to get into Bardiche, right? So you're going to want to hit Bardiche for sure, because that is a very strong card. It gives them a lot of grind game, and by ashing it, you remove that. So this one's up for debate, though. If you guys in the comments, maybe you guys hit another, you hit their starter. For me, I like to hit the Bardiche. Sometimes you hit Tour Guide and it ends their turn, but other times, they have all of these extenders like E-Telly and all of this crazy shit, and they just start going into their combo anyway. So I like to play safe and hit their Bardiche. All right, up next we have Dinos. So this one is a little bit interesting. You might be tempted to hit the Oviraptor, but that is definitely incorrect because Miscellaneousaurus is at 3 in this game, and if they happen to have the Misc in the hand already, you are going to be in for a rude awakening when the Oviraptor is unaffected by the card effect and they full combo you. So you definitely want to hit the Misc in the graveyard when they banish it to summon the Archosaur, the level 1 dinosaur. It really shuts them down. It could even end their turn potentially if they don't play another like little engine in their deck. So yeah, you definitely want to hit Misc. And some more simplified game states, it's also not bad to hit the baby Cerosaurus to stop them from summoning from their deck. But of course, turn 1, you definitely want to just go ahead and ash that Misc in the graveyard when it banishes itself. It will definitely end their turn a lot of the time. So they definitely need cards like Call by the Grave or Cross Out Designator to stop that Ash Blossom. Alright guys, up next we have Dragon Link. So this is another one of those decks where Ash Blossom honestly isn't that impactful. So they have a bajillion extenders, like they have Quick Launch, they have the Collapse Serpents, they have Dragon's Ravine to send whatever they want to the graveyard to try and just keep playing past the Ash Blossom. And for God's sakes, they even play Gamma sometimes to stop the Ash. So honestly though, I like to hit Chaos Space or the Star Liege Seifert. Those 2 cards I find is the most impactful way to stop them. But like I said, they can definitely just keep playing past a single Ash Blossom. This is a deck where you're going to want 2 hand traps usually. And in my opinion, you should not stop Striker Dragon. You should not stop the Collapse Serpents searching. If you're going to stop something, You know, you want to hit like maybe like a Romulus later on if you draw into Ash off of like a Maxi or something. Those are generally good hits. Or even the Chaos Ruler is also pretty decent. But yeah, those are the hits I would do for Dragon Link. But like I said, this deck, you know, it just keeps going. Definitely one of those decks where Ash Blossom is not that impactful. But it could be, you know, that happens sometimes with combo decks. They just get ashed and they have to end their turn. Alright guys, up next we have Ignisters. So usually I like to ash the Dark Infant. You know, you might be tempted to try to ash either Aichichi or the Picari. But the thing about ashing those is that they can just go into the Link 1 Dark Infant to get their field spell, and they just keep extending into their rival Cyberse, which is their boss monster that is very hard to out. So you want to stop them from getting to that at all costs. Now, of course, you know, if they have the Ignister that searches the spell and trap and they get the field spell already to their hands, you are going to be in some trouble. Of course, you're going to want to try and stop something else in the combo that they can add cards. But like I said, if they already have the field spell and they have monsters in their hand, they're going to just dab on you. So Ash is not too impactful. But sometimes definitely, you know, you stop them from getting the field spell and it ends their turn. So look out for this Link 1 monster in Ignisters. Okay, so up next we have Tri-Brigade Lyrilusc. So generally, Fractal is still the best hit in my opinion. The Tri-Brigade portion of the deck is definitely the most grindy and powerful part of the deck. But of course, sometimes they don't open Fractal, believe it or not, and you want to hit the Bird Call. So Bird Call will also prevent them from making plays. You know, obviously by stopping their searching of the Lyrilusc monster, special summoning out for free. And then sometimes you maxi them and you draw into Ash a little bit later. And honestly, hitting their first hitting their first XYZ, the Recital Starling, that's not a bad hit either. Especially if you draw into Ash much later into your turn. So yeah, those would be my hits against the deck. And yeah, they can still end on a decent board. Especially if you Ash Fractal and they have Bird Call, but that's just, you know, that's just variance. Sometimes they get lucky like that. And you hit the right thing, but you know, they might have opened well. So yeah, that's just one of those things about combo decks where they can open up like all of their good cards and they just extend past your hand trap. Alright guys, up next we have Alistair decks. You know, that includes Invoked Shaddoll Dogmatica, Invoked Dogmatica, whatever, Invoked Rainbow Neos, whatever they have. Normally you want to hit the Alistair normal summon. You could hit Meltdown, but sometimes they play Gamma. So in my opinion, it is the safest to hit the Alistair because it is more likely for them to already have Alistair in their hand when they activate Meltdown than it is for them to have Invocation in their hand. So, you know, because they play 3 Alistair and 2 Invocation. So that's, you know, some quick math for you guys. That is the logic behind hitting the Alistair. You will see people, sometimes they hit the Meltdown. I don't think either of them is actually just straight up incorrect, but for me, I hit the Alistair because, like I said, there is less likelihood. It is less likely that they have the Invocation already in their hand. And also, you know, the other thing about, you know, maybe you want to hit Meltdown, you know, that side is you can prevent the Maximus summon because they won't be able to go into the, you know, the Almirage into the Secure Gardna. But, you know, that's just also something that has to do with variance. And it's just going to come down to what you think is the correct move. But I'm telling you guys what I think is the correct move. And, yeah, you know, this is one where, you know, maybe you guys in the comments, let me know what you guys ash against Invoked. The other good card is the Nadir Servant for sure. If they don't start off with Alistair, they go for a Nadir Servant. Just ash that shit immediately. Even a card, you know, like I said, some people are playing that Neos Fusion. Shout out to Duel Links. That shit's getting ashed. Duel Links is dead. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Alright guys, up next we have Thunder Dragons. So this is one of those decks where it's just, oh, those extenders, man, they always get you. Generally, I like to hit Thunder Dragon Dark, whether it's being tributed and sent to the graveyard or being banished. You definitely do not want them to get into their extenders. Commonly, you see cards like Allure of Darkness in this deck. You definitely don't hit the Allure of Darkness. Just hit the card that they banish off of Allure, because I can't tell you the number of times this has happened to me for sure. You know, you're so tempted to hit the Allure, and they have a second one in their hand and they pop off anyway. So just hit the card that they want to banish. You know, that's going to be the general game plan. And, you know, also sometimes with this deck, it depends on the game state. You know, sometimes you hit the Dragon Hawk instead of the Dragon Dark. Sometimes you hit the Chaos Space because they start off with it. This is one of those decks where Ash Blossom can be really good or really bad depending on how well they opened. So keep that in mind. But you can't go wrong with stopping the Dragon Dark. Now, you got to be really careful because Dragon Dark does have an effect to discard itself to add an additional copy of itself. That effect, I would not Ash. I'm waiting until they banish it or get it off of the field. That's the effect that you want to Ash, because that's going to search them their Dragon Hawk or their Dragon Dark. So just keep that in mind, guys. Alright guys, up next we have Sky Strikers. You guys know Sky Strikers, Kamel absolutely despises this deck, and it's for good reason. Engage is an insane card, and it's definitely a card that you want to stop with that Ash Blossom. Another good hit against this deck is going to be Shizuku at the end phase. You can stop them from getting cards like Engage, which is really nice, and you can stop them from getting follow-up like Hornet Drones. So yeah, Shizuku is a really nice hit as well. And the other good hit in this deck is going to be Area 0 being sent to the graveyard. So you want to be careful. Do not Ash the effect on field that lets them look at the top 3 cards. You're going to want to wait for them to use a card like Multi-Roll to get their Area 0 off the field. And then when it's in the graveyard trying to summon a Sky Striker monster, depending on the game state, you know, sometimes, you know, they have no cards in the hand and they desperately need a Ray. That is a perfect opportunity to hit him with that Ash Blossom. But yeah, there's a lot of decent Ash hits against this deck. But you know, you want to be careful because this is definitely a deck where if they draw a Sky Striker monster, they can get right back into the game. So you want to be extremely careful with what you Ash against this deck. And sometimes it will be opportunities for them to just remove the ability for you to use Ash entirely by using Multi-Roll's effect on the field. And in which case, that's where you would move to, like, okay, I need to stop Shizuku then, because that's the only time I can really use the Ash Blossom. So yeah, just keep that in mind, guys, against this deck, and it will definitely help you out against the matchup. Alright guys, up next we have Madolche. So I like to hit the petting this thing. I like to definitely want to Ash Blossom it. The effect to special summon from the deck is insanely powerful, and it's one of their only extenders, honestly. So, you know, if they don't have Salon or anything already, they hard opened it. Ashing this sometimes will just make them end on a very, very mediocre board. The other card you like to hit is Angeli. When it tributes itself to special summon a Madolche monster, that is a great Ash target. Sometimes you get hit with that Gamma, but it's worth it, I believe, to hit the Angeli sometimes. But yeah, petting, you can't go wrong with ashing petting. Alright guys, up next we have Endymion. I don't know if you guys have seen the Twitch stream. You know Rai and Kamel, they say Endymion. It is not Endymion, it is Endymion. So yeah, the thing you want to hit in this deck is going to be Servant. That allows them to get out their Jackal King usually, and that is going to be a monster negate. And from that point forward, you won't be able to Ash a single thing. So this card is a great card to hit with Ash Blossom. You might be tempted to hit other cards, but I usually hold it for the Servant. Sometimes you're unlucky, you know, and they already have a negate, so you can't really Ash anything, in which case, you know, what can you do in that situation? But yeah, hitting the Servant is really nice because also Servant is a very easy way for them to get to Electromite before their Pendulum Summon, but you can basically stop them from doing that. So they have to commit sometimes even their Pendulum Summon before they can make a Link monster, which is ideal scenario against the Pendulum deck. So yeah, hitting Servant is usually a good idea. Alright guys, you already know I have to tell you how to beat my favorite deck. Ashing a Hero Lives, Increase, via Normal Summon, you know, Fusion Destiny, hitting any of those cards will definitely put a frown on any heroes player's face, including me. So yeah, these cards are great Ash hits. But honestly, sometimes, you know, if they're the real Jade and Yuki, you're playing them, they're going to open like multiple of these cards, in which case your Ash is going to be useless. But you know, that is sometimes, that's just how Yu-Gi-Oh is against these combo decks. They open the nuts and you're going to need multiple hand traps. So ideally you want to hit the first of any of those cards you see. So you know, if a hero lives, just Ash it. If they go into their Ferris combo, they go into increase special summon, you want to Ash the increase. If you see Vion come out, you want to Ash him. And if they go Fusion Destiny turn 1, you're going to want to Ash that too. Alright guys, next up we have Numeron. So normally I'm going to tell you guys that ashing terraforming is just completely incorrect. But in rare circumstances where they make you go first and they show you cards like Lightning Storm and, you know, Raigeki, and they kaiju'd your monster and all of these things, ashing the terraforming is correct. But, you know, a lot of these decks, they're going to just start your turn off with terraforming, and, you know, you're going to have to gamble. So in those circumstances, I don't think, I wouldn't even blame you for holding your Ash Blossom. But if they summon Planet Pathfinder, you already know they have an anime body pillow. They're playing their Numeron deck, and you're going to want to hit the Ash on the Planet Pathfinder. So that is my advice to you against the Numeron deck. There's not really too many things you want to Ash. You know, sometimes they max CU as well. Just go ahead and Ash that. And yeah, hopefully you guys do not get bodied by these clowns. Alright guys, up next we have Draco. Now normally I'm going to tell you guys to just hit the diagram, because diagram allows them to get a ton of advantage by getting heritage, by going into, you know, getting monsters. Sometimes it's actually correct to hit heritage depending on the number of cards they're going to draw. So usually heritage will draw them 1 to 2 cards, and in rare circumstances even 3 cards. Another thing you have to be careful of is if they have monsters on the field and you Ash Blossom them, they can gain, you know, those additional effects to set to either put spells, traps, or a monster to their hand or on the field. Not the monster to the field, but to their hand. So you got to be really careful of that. And then on top of all of that, they play these cards like Card of Demise and Pot of Duality. Don't hit the Duality, guys, but Card of Demise is definitely a really, really powerful card that gets them 3 cards. So that is a really good Ash target. But a lot of the time they open up all of these cards in conjunction. So they're almost like, you know, that situation where I've been talking about with combo decks where they open, you know, Diagram, Demise. You hit the Diagram, they hit you with the Demise, you know. Sometimes that's going to happen. So that's going to come up to you, you know, whether or not you want to hit a diagram early or you want to wait for their heritage draw and then let them get more cards off their monsters, or if you hit the Demise when they're late in the game where they're really, really desperate. Obviously, that will always be correct. So this one's going to be a little bit debatable, but I think diagram is definitely the most safe thing to Ash against this deck. Alright guys, up next we have Cyber Dragon. A nice Ash target against Cyber Dragon is Core and the Galaxy Soldier when it wants to add an additional copy of itself. Sometimes they can chain block though, so you're going to be careful of that. They'll do, you know, like the hers to chain block it. So Core, you know, you never go wrong with Core. It's pretty powerful. It gets them to their Cyber Repair Plant, their little combo with Core into Almirage, into Repair Plant, into the Galaxy Soldier. So Core is not a bad hit at all. I just don't really have too much to say about this deck, so let's move on to the next one. Alright guys, up next we have Salamangreat. So this deck, honestly, I think this is one of the weirdest decks to ever be really competitive in the TCG. But regardless of my opinion about this deck, so the cards you want to hit against this deck, definitely Gazelle when they activate the effect in hand, special summon it to send a Salamangreat card to the graveyard. You can just go ahead and Ash that effect. Usually they're going to send either the counter trap or some sort of extender. This is a great card to hit. Another good card to hit in the deck is going to be that Mirage Stalio, their rank 3 Xyz monster, which usually is going to get them a Gazelle. So yeah, Gazelle is a great hit though. It's going to stop them from basically ending on anything. They're going to just need to have non-engine, you know, hand traps and traps if they play any, or they need to just straight up hard open them. So yeah, it's a really great hit. You might be tempted to hit their Link 1, the Balinks. That's actually just super incorrect, guys, so please be careful about that. The cards that I'm recommending to you to hit is because there's going to be other cards that they're going to try to bait you with. Do not get baited by them, guys. These are the hits that I'm telling you that's going to actually impact their turn. There's a lot of decks where they have a lot of things you can Ash. I'm just trying to make it easier so you know, like, oh, okay, when I see this card, I should just Ash Blossom. Alright, guys, and with that being said, you know, do not get baited into ashing a lot of these really bad cards. Sometimes they ask you to ash a common card such as Cyframe Gamma. You have to keep in mind that they can actually just activate Cyframe Gamma again later in the turn. Sometimes it is correct to just go ahead and ash that first activation if you have a really meaningful effect that you need to resolve, and then maybe later you have ways to just not lose the Gamma, but a lot of the times it is incorrect to just ash that Cyframe Gamma, so just keep that in mind, guys. And then other times they ask you if you want to ash a danger monster in the hand. You know, it's not once per turn. They can just go ahead and activate it again, so you just straight up waste your Ash Blossom. You know, sometimes they activate Macrocosmos and ask you if you want to ash it because it does have an effect to special summon from the deck. Don't ash this because it's just gonna waste your Ash Blossom, right? And then obviously, you know, Upstart Goblin, don't ash that, guys. Just wait for a good card to ash. But yeah, with that being said, I'm going to go into a couple cards here that are really great to ash, usually all the time. Starting off with Maxi, of course, ashing the Maxi on your turn or on their turn. If you somehow have the opportunity to special summon multiple monsters, it's not the worst thing. If it's a 1-for-1, you know, hitting the Maxi sometimes is incorrect. If you can, you know, end your turn without giving them too many draws, and you think that that's going to be fine, you might want to hold the ash actually. But generally, if you know you want to pop off that turn, just go ahead and ash that Maxi. Next card that is great to ash is going to be that Grasslook Screener. Especially if you're on a 40 card deck and they got 60 cards, they're going to get a ton of crazy plays with that Grasslook Screener. So you definitely want to hit the ash on that. And then other cards, you know, that are generally like 2-for-1s, like, you know, 1-for-1, Trade In, Pendulum Call, these cards. Another one I can think of is Signet Mining. You know, these cards make them discard a card to usually add a card from their deck to their hand. So that is a great card to ash because you are getting a 2-for-1 advantage. They lost 2 cards and all you lost was your ash. So really nice trade there. And yeah, guys, that is my ash guide. I might have missed a couple decks. I can always do a follow-up video. You know, I plan to do these for a lot of the hand traps, so if you guys want any hand traps in specific, the next one I'm thinking for is Maxi, because I know a lot of you guys, you get questions. I get questions where people are like, when should I Maxi this deck? When should I Maxi that deck? I'm going to try and break it down for you like I did in this video for each deck. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and this has been PDS, and I will see you all in Twitch chat, on the Discord, and in the next video. Peace out.